living in a different world. The last 5 or 4 decades were the most amazing for human being on Earth. The developments that we have seen were tremendous. And we have seen all kinds of changes. First of all, it's a continuous and accelerated process that we are seeing. Just think about how many telephones, smartphones you have changed already in the last 5 years. Thinking that 20 years ago there was no phone like this in the world. How many computers you have changed. Think about what you can do today that you couldn't do 10 years ago. I'm not speaking about my childhood where plastic was almost non-existent, antibiotics were not in existence, we didn't know anything about space, etc. And think just about the last 4 or 5 decades. In the last 4 or 5 decades, first of all, the population of the world has increased dramatically. It has reached already the level of more than 7 billion people. Just 40 years ago, it was half that number. 40 years ago. In 1900, it was 1.6 billion only. In 1800, it was 1 billion, the first time that humanity crossed 1 billion. So 7 billion today, double the number of 40 years ago, and we consume, each of us is consuming today like 30 times more than the people of the past. So we are consuming now like 300 billion people 200 years ago. This is something that the earth cannot contain. It does not give us the services, and we are consuming beyond what we should. And meanwhile, we create a lot of pollution and we destroy our planet. So one of the problems, when we talk about environmental issues, one of the problems is the climate change. It's a huge problem, but it's not the only environmental problem, it's not the largest even. The largest one are the destruction of the environment. In the last 40, 50 years, we destroyed more than a third of all the species of plants and animals. In the last period, in this period, we destroyed more than 80% of all the fishes in the world, etc. So it's just amazing what we are doing to the planet. Not only that, but we lost diversity. So, and this is accompanied with many other processes that I don't have to talk about. But the real question is, does the capitalistic system lead us really to the optimal solution? It does in economic terms, but it destroys the environment and it destroys the society. And the question is whether we can continue like that. And without going into details, I'll tell you what is my conclusion. My conclusion is that we cannot go like that. We have to change. So we have to change the philosophy. So let's see this one. What we have to do is to change, mainly to change the target that we are aiming to. Instead of just thinking about the maximization of the material wealth, we have to talk about the entire ESEC, what I said. ESEC is the economy, ESEC is the society, ESEC is the environment, ESEC is the consciousness, ethics, human values, etc. In other words, instead of us serving the economy has to serve our values. Okay? It's a completely different philosophy that we have to adopt, because if we don't change our behavior, we are lost as humanity. The planet will continue to exist, but we won't exist as a humanity in the next, I don't know how many decades, but not very many though. So this is the issue. Yes. How we do it? First of all, we have to strive toward a multiple goal, not just material wealth. So here are, for example, some goals, the dashboard that our leaders should have in their eyes. These are the goals that we should have. It should be justice, it should be education, it should be housing, it should be health, it should be love, it should be the environment, etc. So we have to develop new set of values, new set of metrics that will lead us. So the dashboard that our leader should have is a much more complicated one and yet to be developed. It is in the process of being developed. So then the question is, what is the role of insurance in this world? The role of insurance is very important. First of all, insurance is a tremendously important industry because when the economy grows, insurance grows faster. So insurance is always a much faster growing industry than any other industry. The percentage of, let's say, insurance premiums in the economy is much higher in rich societies than in poor societies. So when a society gets richer economically, then our consumption of insurance grows. The importance of insurance is by far more important in a sophisticated society than in a less developed society. So insurance is the fastest growing industry, really. So that's one thing that is very important. The second thing is that insurance is connected to almost every aspect of our life. Almost every aspect, and I'll give a few examples in a minute. Insurance, sometimes, I meet many insurance people, and always they complain that there are some sort of second best to the banking industry. The banking industry is attracting all the talents and whatever, and insurance doesn't attract the talents. It's not true, and it should be reversed. If it is true, it should be reversed, because the talent should go here, because much more professionalism is in insurance than in banking. Banking is very simple, and not only that, but in the new economy, banking disappears. Why? Think about what happened to the cost of communication, for example. In recent years, the cost of communication has dropped down dramatically. A few years ago, each of us would have spent a lot of money on the mobile system. It has dropped because the communication technology has developed dramatically. It's very cheap now to use computers, to transfer data, to store data, to process data. The system has become by far more democratic because each of us, in our pocket, we have a telephone, a smartphone, which is it has so much information in it, it gives us access to any knowledge in the world. So governments lose their power. The traditional power of government is declining, and each of us is having more power. And it's very interesting to see it. Insurance is important because the banking system will disappear. The banking system, all the transaction costs, which are tremendous at this point, are going to decline in the near future. You'll be surprised. I'll tell you about it in a minute. Let's see. I think I gave here the example of Archimedes. Archimedes said, give me a point that I can rely on, and I can move the entire world. This is true. Let's see how it is done. The next one. Here's the next. Let's take a few examples. Food production. How insurance could be related to food production. In 1981, the United States wanted to increase the food production in the entire Latin America, South and Central America. And they hired thousands of people, and they invested a lot of millions of dollars in projects to increase the food production. It didn't work. Why? Because all these experts said, well, you should use better seeds, fertilization, irrigation technologies, and whatever. For that, you need money. But the poor farmer in Ecuador or somewhere couldn't get the money from the bank. What bank would lend money to a poor farmer? There is no guarantee that the money will return. So we sat down 3 guys from the insurance business. I took the expertise that I developed in Israel, and we applied a new concept. We said, well, let's develop agricultural insurance policies against natural risks in agriculture, and guarantee that the farmer will have income even if he has a disaster. These policies, in no time, became the guarantee for the loans for the bank. Okay? In no time, the food production in the entire South America has increased dramatically. There is no limit to the ability of even a single person if that person is not interested who will get the credit for what he did or she did, okay? Once you don't have ego in that area, you can do miracles because you do not create objection. Other people don't see that you are competing with them. They help you rather than put sticks in your wheels, okay? So this is the way you could affect the lives through insurance mechanism, which has nothing to do with food production. You can take another example. Keep thinking this. Terror and war. You know, I'm coming from Israel. These last 3 weeks we are in a big war. I show my friends here some photographs of missiles that are flying over my home. And we are in a big war now against the Hamas, against the terrorist group there. During this war, on last Tuesday, I returned from a long trip, transatlantic trip. I returned to Israel, and it was probably the last flight that landed in Israel on that day, and also on the next day, because immediately all the traffic to Israel has stopped. And people say, well, because they hate Israel, they're anti the Israelis or whatever. No, it's a question of insurance. You know, each plane that lands in Israel has a risk of billions of dollars. You know, let's say 450 passengers, that's almost $1 billion damages in case of something happens to them. The body of the plane, $200 million. The fuel, the explosion, whatever. So the damages that could happen are tremendous. Who owns these planes? Banks, not the airlines. Because the banks give the loans and everything is mortgaged to them. So if something happens, they lose money. Therefore, they insist that there will be coverage, insurance coverage for planes. The insurance coverage has to include war risks, which is usually excluded from policies. And the rates of insurance policies go up. I don't want to go into the details. So the whole idea here is that the insurance mechanism can stop the traffic to a country in an hour. Okay? And can resume if you solve these issues. Okay? Through the insurance. What insurance has to do with this? With wars. What it does? Take the third example. No, keep the slide, please. Keep it. Environmental effects. We said that there are environmental effects. In 2006, there was a big report, a Stern report, that estimated the cost of the climate change. It estimated that the annual cost is like between 5 to 25% of global GDP every year. Tremendous cost. And he estimated also that in order to mitigate these risks, you need about 2% of global GDP every year. I made the calculation immediately when I saw the report. 2% of global GDP is $1.5 trillion. Enormous amount. It's 1.5, if you put it $1 on top of the other, it's 1.5 the distance from here to the moon. So where do you get it? Well, I have some rich friends in the insurance industry. The world insurance industry manages a portfolio of $80 trillion. And they have to reinvest every year about 7. So $1.5 trillion out of 7 is not that big. So I immediately started to talk with my friends and told them to do something about it and start to divert their investment toward these directions. And they appointed a committee. And let's see the next picture. This picture is Rio, June 2012. 2012 was the UN Summit for Climate Change and Environmental Risks. I was a member of the Israeli delegation, but on the same week, the insurance industry convened in another part of Rio to sign a treaty that they started to develop when we started talking about it. They got the auspices of the United Nations. They helped them in making this initiative. It's called the PSI Initiative. And in this ceremony, we signed this initiative, which will eventually divert that amount of money to mitigate environmental risks. I'll give you the last example. There are many others. Last example, I talked about the banking. You see, banking is changing. Our monetary system in the new economy is changing. Personally, I am very heavily involved in the introduction of new currencies. These are not competing with national currencies. These are complementary to national currencies. I don't have time to extend on it, but the monetary system will be different, and we will be able to make transactions, banking transactions, almost for free. What will remain? The insurance against the fraud in the system. Okay? So the key issue in the new banking will be insurance, not the banking. Okay? The next one. You see, the main problem is that, as a wise man once said, that you don't drown in water by just falling into the water. You drown when you stay under the water for too long. In the new economy that we are already in it, we are still using an old technology, so our heads are below the water for too long. We have to change it dramatically and fast enough in order to survive. Next, please. And then you say, can we do it? Can I do it? And then I use the phrase, yes, we can. It's a fantastic slogan. What is special about it? What is special about it? 3 languages. Yes in English, we in French, spelled differently, and can in Hebrew is also yes. Okay? So 3 languages, yes we can. Please, next one. Next. If you think that you're too small to make changes, and if you think that you cannot do anything with insurance, think about what one small mosquito can do to you in a hot night, okay? And then you'll understand that you can do those things. Yes, we can. Please, next one. I'd like to thank you very much. I think that in really the short time that we had, I think that at least I tried to stimulate you to get some new ideas about the new economy. And yes, we can change. We should change, not only that we should change as soon as possible. And we should have changed the rules. It's not easy. We have to develop the new metrics. It's not easy. We have to develop new financial measures. It's not easy. We have to measure success not only by the monetary success, but in the return on investment, but in a different way. We have to develop these rules. I thank you very, very much.